Breaking news, we have Professor Patrick Lomumba here, who actually is here to explain to us the war between Ukraine and the war between Iran right now and Israel. Who actually is wrong, and if definitely we are supposed to hit back, who is supposed to cease fire? And the most breaking part of the whole issue is where Prof is explaining or exposing America's stance in this particular issue. Because I'm telling you, the country that we refer to as the most democratic state or country in the world, if you look at it critically, something is wrong with that sentence. But just watch the video and then we'll be right back.
Beloved country. And the Israelis themselves have not hesitated to go back to history and to go back to the Torah and say that we are chosen of God. And because we are chosen of God, we are different, we are unique. And because we are unique, we must be treated differently. And America, which has underwritten the state of Israel from its creation in 1948, has reinforced this so that the Israelis actually believe that they are special. They believe that they can do no wrong. They believe that they are God-guided. So when you are dealing with the people who believe that they are undertaking a divine mission, then the first casualty is logic. And when logic has been sacrificed at the altar of mysticism, then your journey is very short and your reasoning is also not given any space at all. Your reasoning has the chance of a snowball in hell. And that is where we find ourselves. And lastly, you must also remember that we are dealing with a Western world whose power and influence is diminishing. Like it or not, it may take many years, but the global South is awake. And that global South is saying that the time is now for us to be heard and heard clearly. The demography of the world is changing. Europe is becoming older and older population, and they are scared. They are scared. That is from a Western perspective. If you ask many Africans, many in the African continent, they are casting their lot with Vladimir Putin. They are saying that Putin is simply using the same thing that the Israelis do, because the Israelis gave birth to this concept of preemptive defense. It is exactly the same thing that Putin said. I'm defending our country preemptively, because if I don't, we will be attacked sooner rather than later. So the Israelis attacked Iran on the basis of preemptive defense. So, and Nelson Mandela put it very well at one time when he was confronted with this question. He says, these fellows, when they don't want you under your freedom fighter, they call you a terrorist. And yet, the truth is, all freedom fighters are labeled terrorists because the Western world long recognized if you want to kill a dog, you give it a bad name, then you proceed to kill it. So from where I sit, there is nothing that is happening that is bad from Russia. The only thing is we must agree. War is a bad thing. It is a bad thing because young men and women die. It is a bad thing because everybody suffers, both those who are wronged and those who have committed the wrong. So nobody really wants war. War is last resort. And if you ask any of these war generals, their preferred position is, let us never get to war. But don't listen too much. Let us not listen too much to Western analysts whose only agenda is defined by one thing. We are good, they are bad. And if we say they are bad, say yeah. And we say they are good, agree with us. That kind of approach has no place in the civilized world. You know, the Israeli conflict with Iran and the fact that there is a deafening silence from the West, and which is actually complicit, takes away their high moral stance that they had with regard to the war between Russia and Ukraine. The same arguments are no longer available to them. And in the last 1 week, when the Israelis have been jousting with the Iranians, you no longer hear as loudly as it was that the Russians are bombarding Kiev. In fact, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is no longer occupy acres and acres of space in the newspapers as it was 2 weeks ago, because it has taken away the moral argument that the conceptual West had. And that is why you can see now they are a little bit slow to judge, or even if they are doing so, they are not doing it as loudly and as boldly as they were doing, which is good. It is good because it is creating an environment where, in fact, all combatants, all parties who are involved in conflict can be brought to the negotiating table. It is a bad route to take, but I think it is the route that has been taken. And sometimes there is a storm before the lull. I hope and pray that this storm between Iran and Israel is the storm that will create a lull which will lead to peace, even if it is merely a modus vivendi where people live and let live without permanent peace. It will be good for the world to reassess, and to reassess the institutions that were created after the World War II, to look at the UN Charter again, to look at the architecture of the United Nations again. I think for the first time since the World War II, all these institutions are being reassessed. The International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, all these are now under scrutiny, because it would appear to me that the 21st century and the conflicts that have arisen require different approaches going forward. We are fighting at a time where fights are not even, there are no men and women in boots on the ground. Drones have taken space. Ballistic missiles. How do you prosecute this war? How do you deal with it in the context of the instruments that we have, which were created after World War II? Many questions, begging many answers, and it will take bold people, bold leadership at the political level to arrive at the desired destination. The question as to what could happen if the Ayatollahs are removed is one that does not lend itself to easy answers. But there are things that tell us how dangerous and how confused it could be. Look at Libya post-Gaddafi. One would have thought that after Gaddafi, then Libya would be El Dorado, the land of gold. We now know and see the confusion. See Iraq after Saddam Hussein. One would have thought that after Saddam, you'd have a regime that responds to the West in the manner that the West wants. See Syria after Assad, and look at the situation. There may be stability in and around Damascus, but what about the rest of Syria? And I dare say that Iran could be a lot more complex, because you have people who are inclined toward the theocratic regime, which is Shia Muslim of their own kind. There are people who are remnants of the Pahlavi dynasty. And all these factors which we thought were dead were possibly in a state of comatose. And if they arise and they are armed, we could see in Iran a civil war. we could see in Iran what we are seeing in Afghanistan. Those are the possibilities, those are the scenarios that lend themselves to being taken into consideration if the Ayatollahs were to leave the scene.
After watching the video is long on that podcast that I saw, but I decided to scrutinize it. Those of us who have been following history on social media or documentaries, you realize that Israel have been hitting on Iran long time ago. Now, when Iran decided to pay back, it seems like, no, Iran don't want peace, Iran don't want this. Did you really see how Americans are behaving in this particular thing? They know, very smart people, they are taking their time because they don't want to be called as hypocrites. Because everybody we are batching on Putin. No, Putin have committed what this, Putin have committed what. But you know, America are friends with Israel. But let me tell you something. Like people say, one day is one day. If you keep humiliating somebody, I don't care what the history is, one day they gotta take their stand. By the way, as history told, do you think Iran is supposed to cease fire or continue to fight for its territorial integrity? And don't forget, don't you think that this is another third world war? I'm only feeling pity for African countries who have everything but yet are lazy and depending on international donors for everything. We are going to feel the pain more than even people who are fighting this war right now. Can you imagine? But anyway, when it comes to Russia, to me, I think like Russia might, let's say Putin is a bad guy because war is bad, war is war. But if you look at it considering on the part of Africa, we need to give Putin support. And let me tell you something, all the bullshit that is happening in the world right now, if I tell you something, will you believe? All this was initiated by the British. But we'll leave that for another day. Let me know what you think in the comment section and then I'll see you in the next video.